Welcome to Your Success Podcast. We give you actionable insight and stories behind real-life success wherever you go.
Welcome to Your Success Podcast. I'm Angelos,
Thank you.
And today I'm joined by Barton of Clive Empson Auctioneers. Really great to have you here today. Please go on.
Pleasure to be here.
So Graham, auctions. I know it's an interesting subject for a lot of investors out there. Some have had great experiences, some who have maybe paid a little bit more or got caught out in the detail later on. Before we start looking at some of that stuff, how did you first become an auctioneer, please?
So my dad was a dentist, and we lived in the house where the surgery was, and every day in the summer, his oldest and most itinerant son walked up to the golf course, his golf course, to play golf all summer, a long time ago. And one day he was in the surgery, leant over the local cattle market auctioneer, saw me wandering off to his golf club again, and he turned to the auctioneer in his chair and said, "Do you want anaesthetic with this, or are you not going to give my son a job?" I started on the Monday, that being a Friday afternoon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I did 2 years, just like any lad does in that industry, welding, painting, basically looking after the cattle market. And then one day, the auctioneer of the pannier market, which is basically the men in those days, would take the livestock to the cattle market. The farmers' wives would bring their produce to the pannier market. Simplifying a bit, but that was basically it. And I was asked to go to the pannier market because someone was on holiday and I didn't think anything of it. And they said halfway through, "Well, we'll have a change of voice." What? And they put me up there and in front of 200 baying housewives, which was a baptism of fire. And I never looked back, got hold of the idea fairly quickly, accelerated to the cattle market. I am now a vegetarian. I don't know that the two are related. And got into property in 1995, and that's all I've ever done since.
That's absolutely brilliant. And you have been featured numerous times on Homes Under the Hammer.
Yes, it's a program that basically our auction model fitted their needs, in that if they went along to an auctioneers that had a limited number of lots, and one didn't sell, two did, and only one of those wanted to play tellies, that was one property for them, having sent down crew, director, lights, camera, all the rest of it. Whereas back then, in my days with, can't say the word, begins with F or C, and that's not being rude, they do, we were doing 30 or 40 lots at an auction. So there was going to be 5 or 10 buyers who fancied playing tellies. So in a pure business sense, the Homes Under the Hammer team sort of plumped for our auction model as opposed to anyone else's, because they were guaranteed people who would take up their product.
Yeah. And they just turn up, they're in the background, they can't influence anything, you're just you're doing your thing, getting houses sold.
People say, you get nervous as a consequence? No, actually, not even the first time. So you've got director and producer on your right, you've got a fixed camera looking at you, you can see the monitor, and the roving camera is right by your head. Well, not quite, but just off to the right. And you're thinking, oh, is this my good side, bad side? I hope I don't use any bad language, which I did at times, but anyway. But actually, the moment you start, your audience is live. It's not a machine.
Yes.
I never ever gave it a second thought, because I'm in front of 200, 300, 400 people, and that's what I do for a living.
Yeah. So for those at home who haven't necessarily bought from auction before or considering doing it for the first time, what is the auction buying process from start to finish? So So people are aware of what to expect.
How is it? Getting a catalogue is the first thing, and then seeing something in there, or more than one thing, that just tickles your fancy a little bit for what your strategy is, your investment strategy is. It might be to do something up and make a few quid. It might be to buy something to get a rent out of it going forwards. Different people have different needs, strategies, and so on. Having thought, oh, that's interesting, because it's usually a little spark that goes off. Go and view it. You'd be staggered how many people don't. It's just unbelievable.
Buying blind.
Absolutely. I'm the only one who actually knows, in an auction room, somebody will come runner-up on an early lot, and they don't want to go home looking like some kind of sap, so they'll just turn the page. They'll turn the page in tandem with what, and I'll see them. They'll look down. That's interesting. Yeah, all right then. And I'm thinking, what are you doing? You've not read the legal pack. That's the next thing. Anyway, people do, and as far as I know, they've never gone wrong. It's just the nature of the business. At an auction, if you're remotely intelligent about the figure you spend, you're probably not going to go wrong. It's more a question of how right you are, as opposed to how wrong you might be.
So it's a very emotional process, right?
Yes, my job is to try and make it emotional, either in the sense of being just a pleasant way to do business. So you're kind of happy to go 1 or 2 extra because you're having a nice time, or you're chuckling or whatever. Occasionally you get friction. And usually happens, I would say, in the larger conurbations. So in a big town or a city, Plymouth or Truro or Exeter, you'll have members of a particular industry who some like each other, some don't, and some will bid just because he's bidding. I don't even want this, but he's not having it. And off they go. Yeah. And it's the dream scenario. In fact, I had one, actually at a charity auction, only on Friday, where a lady wanted the lot that I was selling. She just kept her hand up. There was no up, it was just up. Well, in my job, that is obviously the dream scenario, because they're just in to make sure that somebody else doesn't get it. That's probably once an auction I can see actual testosterone, for want of a better way of putting it, being the driver to a purchasing decision. But having viewed it, which is what you should do, as they say, get the legal pack, because there's all sorts of things that could apply. There could be covenants, there could be things in the local search you don't want to be there.
Issues with title.
Yeah, absolutely. But actually, the days of something coming to auction because there's something dodgy with the title, I can't remember the last time. I really can't remember the last time that was why something was presented to auction. What normally happens is that the mortgageability of something, that is actually what we're assessing. And in the simplest of terms, the more mortgageable something is, the less auctionable it is. And vice versa, the less mortgageable it is, that's an auction thing. And obviously there's loads of shades of grey in between. Get the legal pack. As I'll be saying later on, check the special conditions, especially because quite often, way more than 50% of the times, there will be an imposition in those special conditions on the buyer to reimburse the seller some of their costs of disposal. There's no actual justification for it, but you can, so they put it in.
That's similar to an embarrassment clause, isn't it?
Is that what it's called? Is it? I've not heard that before.
I had one last year, where there's a block of 3 flats, and because it was a little bit sensitive, shall we say, to the seller, all that situation. I think it's a repossession or corporate client, shall we say. And
I know what you're going to say. Yes, you are barred actually from selling.
If you make a profit within the first 6 or 12 months, you have to then give some of that profit back to the original owner.
Got it.
Because it's an embarrassment clause, etc.
Yes.
So it can sometimes trip people up. So I know the person who actually ended up buying it.
Yes.
And they didn't realise this. And they had to hold on for at least 12 months when their strategy was to flip it to buy and sell.
Buy the next one and on you go.
As quick as possible. And I was like, oh shit, I'm going to have to give away 50% of my profit here.
Sorry?
Sugar. 50% of my profit here because of this clause. So they
Yeah.
had to hold on for an extra 6 months,
Yes.
and they had to rent it out and all go through that
Yeah.
palaver. So it can trip you. So it's very important what you say.
Read the specials. That would normally be for residential repossession properties, which we very rarely get, actually, because usually a lender, if the borrower falls on hard times and they take it back, they'll go to an estate agent first to try and sell, the bank or the building society, and only after a certain period will they give an auctioneer a call. So we rarely get residential repossessions. They usually sell in the agent's world.
Yeah.
But I have heard of these clauses, and for me, it's an indication that they've sold it in the wrong place. If you sell it in the right place, it'll make full value. So
When you say the wrong place, what do you mean by place?
I've made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds for people who've bought a West Country property out of a London auction room and brought it back to me within hours and said, Graham, I just picked this up in, can't say where, but in the London auction room, and can you make a profit on it? Well, is that all you paid? Yeah, you're right, I'm going to make you a profit on that.
Because the West Country person is unlikely to be in London.
He might not know. So, for example, blowing our trumpet a little bit, we have about 27 days of marketing, 26, 27 days of on the market auction day. A lot of the London auction rooms have less than 20, so less than 3 weeks. Well, it's not really long enough in order for the majority of people to see it, do the viewings, read the legal pack, sort out their finances. There's an element of it's 150 miles away, or if you're in Cornwall, it's 200 miles away, more. And it's not a conducive way of maximising that's why they need embarrassment clauses, because it'll probably undersell, out of region. And if it undersells out of region, they leave themselves open for, trouble with the borrower.
So you've read the legal pack, hopefully.
Yep.
You've viewed it, definitely.
Yes.
Then you've got to arrange your finance.
Yep.
Which can be quite an interesting one. So bridging finance, because you need that speed.
Yep.
Because effectively, once that gavel goes down, that's it. You're tied into the contract, right?
Thank you for not calling it a hammer.
Yeah.
A lot of people call it hammer. So thank you for that. Yes, once the gavel goes down, bang, right, the big clock is ticking. And it's normally 4 weeks, 20 business days. It's in the special conditions, check to be sure, because sometimes it is 14. That's rare, but you want to know. So read the specials in the legals. You've got probably we'll send on the contracts within 36 hours, so your solicitor will know about the selling solicitor, put them together. But if you've got money to arrange as opposed to having ready access to it, because of course the deposit that you pay on the day, that's cleared funds. That's from under your bed. Mm-hmm. If you need to get funds from another quarter, you don't want to miss days because you're playing golf or you're on holiday or you can't be. Auctions, as I'll say later on, is all about just gently keeping your foot on the pedal as to what you're doing, because you lose 3 or 4 days and suddenly the person you want to speak to is on holiday or something. You don't need to. There's no actual pressure as such. I would say that any pressure that comes into the auction process is because the buyer has taken his foot off the pedal, thinking, "Oh, I've got it. Fantastic, I've got the property. Yeah, I'll sort finance, and then I'll come back. Oh my goodness, completion next week. What the hell? That's so. Just concentrate on doing it properly. That's all.
And if you can't secure the finance, or something goes wrong, etc., or you're a bit lazy about it, you lose your deposit.
Yep. That's probably the best outcome. Is you lose your deposit. That can be a lot of money, obviously, but you can be sued for what's called specific performance, which, as it sounds, is to make you specifically perform the contract.
So if you're underperforming,
you could get into.
No one likes an underperformer.
No, absolutely, in every respect. Being a Manchester United fan, I know what underperformance is about. Anyway.
Moving on.
Yes.
Okay, so we've identified the process of buying at auction. We've looked at it very quickly. But what type of person does best at buying auction? What characteristics do they need to have in order to do the best and achieve the best outcome, the best price, etc.?
As well as doing all the proper steps I've outlined, actually in the room, which is where you do your buying, I would say it's someone who's done the theoretical, the boring maths stuff, but who is willing just to go 5 or 10% more to be the one that takes it forward, because there's kind of always a margin in there, and if you're not in it, you can't win it. And once you get to doing your decorating or putting your kitchen in, all those things, you can usually shave off a bit. If you actually stick to your number and don't get, there's a chance you won't buy, because there'll be someone out there who'll do it for £12,500 profit rather than 15. And if you don't get it, you don't make your 15, never mind 12.5. And if on a yield basis, if you require 8.5% from your investment, and someone can apply a greater multiplier because they only want 8.5, well, actually, when you get home thinking, I'd put up with 8% because it's still not bad. It's just a little element. I'm not saying going cavalier, but just do your maths, be aware of them, but don't be shy, just to tickle a little bit over, because those are the people that I see looking out. They're the ones who are successful. They're the ones who get the property and don't miss the opportunities that are presented to them.
So I guess that could be one of your top tips, right? Just be a little bit flexible in your end.
Yes, yeah. Be thoughtful about the end value of what you're going for, the yield you require, what it's going to cost to get there, and how much the thing you're buying is going to be worth. And don't forget, with a bit of luck, depending on economics, there should be a little bit of capital growth. If you're buying a rent machine, it should tiptoe up gently if you buy in the right place. Nothing savage like it used to be, because that was no good to anybody, but it should gently tiptoe up. So you've always got that kind of safety margin to a point, just covering you. If you just go a little bit extra, okay, it's going to tiptoe up over time. 1 or 2 extra grand or whatever it is. Yes.
In 5-10 years' time, where you really need to think
absolutely.
about
Will you wake up thinking, I wish I
had that £500 from 10 years ago. God damn it.
Yeah.
But then you drive past that property that you could have had for an extra £500. And how annoying would that be to you?
That's what the shrewd people do. They will go a little bit further. So the cavalier ones might just get out. The ones who do it only on maths probably won't buy it. It's the chaps in the middle who walk away with the prize.
Yeah. Any other top tips for someone who hasn't been into an auction before, a little bit nervous?
Okay. Very good question. A lot of it is, I think Feng Shui is a bit of old, but actually, in an auction room, I wouldn't plump myself in the middle of everybody, because you're going to have to put your hand or your arm up with a catalogue in it. I'd make sure that I was actually sat in an aisle seat or on the outside where there's space to the side of me. It just gives you a calmer feeling rather than being squeezed and crushed.
I guess you're more aware of the room as well.
Yes, you can stand. A lot of people actually stand. That's usually because there's so many people there, and all the chairs are gone.
Well, now after listening to this, there's going to be a great parting of the sea in front of you because everyone's to the side.
I don't have strong feelings. I personally, on the occasions, many years ago, when I went to an auction to bid for somebody, I felt happier stood. I don't like being cramped in, whereas some people might like the feeling of comfort of being all wrapped in a blanket of folk who are kind of around them. No, I'd either sit in an aisle seat or on the edge, or stand at the back and quietly play my game. The different styles of bidding, of course. Some people jump in early because they enjoy the journey up to the end result. Others just quietly, calmly just sit looking out the window. They're listening, mind, because the only time that it's really important to bid, like really, is when the auctioneer says, first time, second time, third and last. And some people's strategy is to dive in then, so the person who thought they were just about to get, blimey, and puts them off.
Can you see the disappointment in their face? It's like, God damn it.
Yeah, I do. Often you look out, because everything I do, someone comes second. And that's just the nature, well, it's life, isn't it? Yeah, but...
as Ricky Bobby said, if you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, I must go to bed with that in my head, actually. Yeah.
Good old Talladega Nights. Right. What does success mean to you, Graham?
Success to me is, first of all, so there's two. One is being endowed with the property in the first place, following my inspection and advice to the client, because it's usually 9 times out of 10, it's a civilian. It's just a regular sort of person, and they are giving me for care, probably the most valuable thing they've ever had in their possession. And I take that as quite a compliment as to not only the figures that I've quoted, but the fact they think, yeah, he's gonna whatever job gets done, I'm happy to give him the baby, as it were. So that's a measure of success. But just that sound, just that. And you think, no, it really doesn't matter whether it's £1 million or 5,000. I really don't care. It's that, the deal, I suppose.
Have you ever had it where you've done first time, second time, third time, and someone always comes in just before? How many times has it gone on before you actually slam that gavel down?
Well, I usually get irritated myself if the two people are both playing that game. Yeah. Because it turns into a game. They just first, second, third, and last. Right. And I usually say something like, right, "Have you two got nothing to do later on today?" Or I might change my wording a bit quick. So instead of saying first time, second, and third time, I might say first, second, and third. So they said, "Oh my God, I'm about to miss it," just to accelerate things. Or sometimes refuse a £1,000 bid and say, "Well, I'm only going to take a £2,000 bid," just to make them concentrate a bit on what they're doing. But to be honest, it usually embarrass them into saying, "I'm sorry about these two, everybody. If you'd like to, take a cigarette or a coffee break, I'll carry on with these two." And that usually shames them into, okay, just getting on a little bit with business.
Yeah, because you've got many lots to get
through.
Yeah, the world doesn't revolve around
no, man, just these two chaps. No,
just these two. Great, Graham. One last question. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you? Perhaps they've been inspired or they'd like to reach out to you for whatever reason.
Really, the simplest way is to go to the Clive Empson website, and under the West Country office, that's where they'll find me.
Brilliant. Graham, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're a very busy man. I'm sure we could have talked about auctions for many, many hours.
Yes, we could.
I'm sure you've got many, many stories, and perhaps later on we can have another podcast together.
I'd love that.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Andy.
So you've heard what Graham's talked about today. Perhaps you've been in one of Graham's rooms whilst this process has happened. I'd love to hear your thoughts at home about auctions. Maybe you bought some, maybe it went well, maybe it didn't go so well. Please reach out at hello@yoursuccesspodcast.com or reach out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. We're everywhere. So I've been Angelos. Thank you again, Graham.
Pleasure.
And see you again on the next exciting episode of Your Success Podcast.
You have been listening to Your Success Podcast. Click subscribe for more incredible content. More details can be found at www.yoursuccesspodcast.com.